It was a quiet evening when Mia arrived at the old farmhouse, inherited from her late aunt. The place had been abandoned for years, surrounded by overgrown vines and a dense fog that seemed to settle in the yard. Mia hadn't been here since she was a child, and the memories were distant, clouded by time. Still, there was something about this house that called her back. Maybe it was the promise of the inheritance, or perhaps it was the strange feeling she had whenever she thought of her aunt's mysterious passing. The house creaked under the weight of time as Mia stepped inside. The air was thick with dust, the silence suffocating. She made her way through the hallway, passing old portraits of relatives whose eyes seemed to follow her every move. Her aunt had been a private woman, keeping to herself and rarely speaking of the past. But Mia had always sensed there was something strange about the house. As she walked into the living room, Mia's eyes landed on an old rocking chair in the corner, slowly rocking back and forth despite the lack of wind. She froze. Her heart raced, and she tried to laugh it off. "It's just the old wood," she muttered under her breath. But then she noticed something else. A small wooden box on the table, its surface covered in intricate carvings. Curious, Mia picked it up. The box was heavier than it looked, and there was no key. She tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. Something about it felt wrong. The moment her fingers brushed against the box, the temperature in the room dropped, and she heard a faint whisper, like someone calling her name. "Mia." She spun around, but the room was still empty. Goosebumps prickled her skin. She placed the box back on the table, deciding it was best not to disturb it further, but as she did, she noticed something terrifying. In the reflection of the window across from her, standing in the doorway, was a shadowy figure. It was her aunt. But her aunt had died years ago. Mia's breath caught in her throat. She stepped back, heart pounding in her chest. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, staring at her with hollow eyes. Mia's legs shook and she reached for her phone to call for help. But the screen flickered, then went black. The rocking chair began to rock faster. Suddenly, the figure stepped forward, its feet gliding over the floor with unnatural silence. Mia turned to run, but the door slammed shut on its own, trapping her inside. From the corner of the room, the voice whispered again, clearer this time. "You shouldn't have come back." The last thing Mia heard before the lights went out was the faint sound of the rocking chair, still moving, and then silence.